Today's show topic is ghost ships. So that can
Yeah.
kind of mean a few different things. It can mean haunted ships, actual ships. It can
Hmm.
mean ships that come in a form of an apparition. It can be uh, ghostly, I suppose, crew members on board a actual working ship. So we've got lots of things that we can talk about today in various directions. And for me, this one's sort of again right up my alley because with our haunted history tours, we actually do a tour along the shores of Lake Erie and talk about the ghost fleet that is often seen
Oh,
on the lake. As well, there's a number of other instances surrounding ships in the area. And I know, Ian, you wanted to talk about the Queen Mary, I think.
We'll get to that, but I want to go back to the military theme that
Mm.
Rachel brought up.
okay.
And excuse me, when back in 2014, when Trudy and I were first getting into the paranormal, there was a a bus tour that was being arranged by our friends here in Hamilton at the Ghost Walks to go over to Buffalo, New York, to visit the Buffalo Naval Memorial Park.
Oh, I have been there
Okay.
myself numerous
Yeah,
times.
and
Yeah.
at the
I
park,
need to check that place out.
there's a submarine, there's a
Nice.
naval destroyer, and I believe it's a frigate is the other ship.
Right. Yeah, there's a small frigate there. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we couldn't attend. And Trudy was a little
Oh,
disappointed with this, because she wanted to go and see these ships and hear the ghost stories. And I don't know if they were planning on maybe doing a small investigation. So, anyways, I thought about it for a little bit and I said, well, you know what? Hey, we don't have to go to Buffalo because we have a naval destroyer right here in Hamilton. The type of ship was called a tribal class destroyer, and every one of the ships, there were 27 altogether that were built. Every one of them is named after a different indigenous people.
indigenous.
And the one here in Hamilton was the Haida. And as I say, there were 27 made for Canada, Britain, and Australia.
Yeah, they're fairly
And
small ships too. They're not
what's that?
big. They're fairly small in the terms of ships as well, and
In
especially
terms of
for
ships, I mean
battleships.
it's a big ship. It's
It's
a
pretty
big ship,
small.
but
It's
compared
small.
to some of the others, it's not that big.
Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
small.
and that's what it was for. It was a destroyer. It wasn't that big because it was meant to be maneuverable,
Hmm.
lightweight, fast, speedy, yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And the Haida turned out to be the most decorated ship in the Canadian Navy because it sank more enemy ships and submarines than any other Canadian ship.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it was dedicated as the most fightingest ship in the Navy. And 13 of the 27 were sunk during the war. 13 were scrapped after the war.
Hmm.
And today only the Haida remains.
And
And
it's
it's now here, just so you can see what I'm
so you
talking
can see it,
about.
Rachel. See, there it
Okay,
is.
I'm looking. Oh, wow. That is so impressive. Oh
It's a
my
pretty
God.
cool ship.
I like that. Very nice.
I've
There's
got
the
some
Wow.
other ship.
fashion photos from a fashion shoot that we took right in front of that ship.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah,
wow. That's so awesome.
the fashion shoot in front of it because it was just really a cool backdrop, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay, so
bet. Oh,
is
for
the
sure.
ship haunted? Let's end our dramatic pause now. And in my opinion,
Yeah.
yes, it
Yes.
is.
I knew it was
Because
coming.
even though it's Parks Canada and they don't allow any
they don't
formal
allow
investigation in
investigations.
the
Yeah.
paranormal to take place on the ship, we went down, we had our cameras, just our regular SLR digital cameras to take photos. And the only equipment we brought with us were digital recorders. to
Okay.
capture EVPs. And also, as I've mentioned before, your body is the best paranormal tool.
Oh yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
so we could kind of get in there and do what we wanted to do, in addition to enjoying the history and everything. And
So I'm going to be interested now to see where you picked up things, because I'll tell you where I got something in there too.
okay, so for anyone who's never been on this ship before, it
Let's
is.
just say it's pretty tight inside.
It can be, but it's a
Very close quarters.
It's
yeah.
not
For the most part, it's a self-guided tour. You just
yes.
go
it
in.
is.
Oh, okay, you just go
wander
get.
around
All right.
wherever you wanna go.
I like those. I like that.
There's no time limit, and
Yeah.
we spent hours
And it's cool
wandering
because
the
sometimes
ship.
you can go on a day and there's like nobody else there,
Yeah,
which is really awesome.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because when we went, there was no one else, just us.
That's awesome.
So-
That is awesome because you get to enjoy it without too many
Yeah.
distractions. Yeah.
So let's get into a little bit of verifiable
Okay.
paranormal evidence here, as opposed
Yeah,
to
let's hear
stories
it.
and legends. And
Mhm.
okay, so we're wandering the ship, and we found 2 locations that we consider to be hotspots. And the first one is down below decks in what is the officers' cabin area. It's where their berths.
His living space.
There's the officer's kitchen. There's a beautiful dining area with big gigantic dining room table. There's leather chairs for the officers to lounge back in. It's a really beautiful part of the ship. And so we went down there, and immediately you could feel the heaviness in the air. And we're wandering around, and it just felt like you're being watched the entire time. And you got to think about this, because so there's Trudy, who's a female, wandering this part of the ship where the whole crew are composed
been
of
male?
entirely male sailors,
Ah.
right? And she could just feel the eyes staring at her. And
Yeah.
so we're rolling on our digital recorders, and so like we could feel it's like they don't like us here. And so I asked the question, why don't you like civilians being on your ship? Which comes back to what we had talked about a couple weeks ago, is, do the spirits see what we see? Do they see only in their own timeline? So if that's what they see, there wouldn't be civilians on the ship. And they're going like, what are you doing here? This is a naval ship. You're not Navy. You're not supposed to be here. And so I asked, how come you don't like civilians being on the ship? And I got an EVP that said, I'm going to hurt them.
Ah.
And if you think about it in that terms, it makes sense. It's like civilians aren't supposed to be there. They're trespassing. Get off my ship kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we did what we did there in the officers' cabins, and we moved on in our wanderings of the ship. And the second place we found that was the real hotspot was the engineering cabin and engineering office, again, which is down below decks. It's a very small area that contains those engineering departments, as well as the ship's mail room and the auxiliary radio room. And
Is
so,
that where the sonar is?
no,
No, because that's up on the other deck.
that's
Okay,
up on
yeah.
the main deck in the main
That's on the main
communications
deck. Yeah,
area.
that's right.
Yeah. So we're down in this little area, and Trudy walked into the engineer's cabin, and same thing right away. She gets hit with this wave of heavy atmosphere, and she says, "Whoa, Ian, you get in here. You gotta come in this room and feel this." And so when I was going through the doorway in, I'm still rolling on my digital recorder. I got an EVP that said, go in there, go ahead. Because it was giving me permission to enter his cabin.
Interesting.
And then when I got in, my arm just broke out in goosebumps. Again, we get an EVP that
Good
after our
sneeze.
introductions, EVP, now this is the same voice
Oh, really?
that said, go in there.
As the previous
Yeah.
one.
As
Oh.
like, go in there, go ahead. We got the same voice after our introductions that said, hi, how are you? So we were starting to actually interact with an
Ooh.
intelligent,
Oh, that's cool.
That's
intelligent
awesome.
energy.
Yeah, I like that.
And then at one
Oh,
point, I
excuse
put my
me.
recorder down on the engineer's bed. And right away, I get another EVP, same voice. So we're dealing with this one specific energy. And he says, take that off the bed. So I did. And we spent some time in there and then went into next door in the area, which I say was the ship's mail room.
Right.
And again, you could feel this energy just follow us. And, same thing. It's, Trudy asks, did you just follow us from the other room into here? And again, EVP that says, yes, I did. It's like, it's so amazing.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I love it when things like that happen and you don't expect it, but you get so much stuff. It really, gives
Yeah,
I
that
think
sort of
it gives you
solidifies it,
confidence
right?
you're on the right track.
So Ian, let me ask you this because I kind of remember the layout of the ship. It's been quite a number of years. I mean, I used to live in the North End right by the ship, like we were 2 minutes away. Where is the black and white tile floor? Is that in the officers downstairs in the officers area? Do you recall that at all?
I believe it is because I remember where the general crew,
Right.
their area and where they berth, in bunks and hammocks. That's a
And
red
for
and
some
white
reason,
tile.
I'm thinking it might have been the kitchen area, but offhand, I can't think of it now. Like I know that when we were on
Black and
the
the
ship,
black and white. I think that's the officers' quarters.
yeah, the officers' quarters, because that was one area too that and I remember the black and white tile floor because I have black and white tile floor here, but I always remember black and white tile floor. I don't know why. There's just something in my brain that's wired for black and white tile floor. I don't know if it's genetically passed on to me from some, relation of mine, like Mary Queen of Scots, who, may have had a black and white tile floor. It was very popular in the Renaissance and that. It's always in my head. I always remember when I see black and white tile floors. But I remember that on the boat, and I remember that was one spot that I picked up on a certain amount of energy. The other spot was the sonar area, where the sonar is.
Mm-hmm.
That was another spot for me that I remember walking in and just going, oh, you could feel there was, and I mean, the one thing we should point out is this ship has, nothing is running on this ship, right? It is a museum. It's
That's right.
pretty much just sitting there. So it's not like you're going to pick up anything from the actual sonar functioning, anything like that, right? So, but there was a couple of spots that I recall. Now, the time that we were on there, the last time, there was a number of people because it was an open doors. And so it was one of the free sites that you could go on, right? So we popped on during that time. So there was more people and it was kind of crowded. And I just remember, it's quite narrow in areas, like trying to walk through. It's like one person wide. You're not going to get two people through. But yeah, it was definitely a cool spot. And I remember being on it as a kid numerous times at Ontario Place.